You're listening to Startup Recruitment Failures. Behind every successful founder lies a tale of recruitment ups and downs. Join me on this thrilling journey and learn firsthand from top leaders on how to navigate through challenges and stay ahead of the game. We all make mistakes, but the real growth happens when we learn from them early on. Hello, Laura. Thank you so much for participating here today on Startup Recruitment Failures podcast. Laura Galdikene is a principal economist at ConnectPay. She's economist, researcher, lecturer at the university. Maybe you could tell us more what is the field and the focus of your researches and studies.
Hi, Indre. So it's a great pleasure of being here on this podcast. I always have trouble introducing myself because I used to introduce myself as a traditional economist analyzing macro developments. I have worked for I think more than a decade in the financial sector. So, one of the largest commercial banks here in Lithuania. Then I moved to the central bank, but then I felt, well, it's not fulfilling enough. So I want to tackle something that's new and exciting. So I decided to go to academia and become a scholar, so become a scientist. So currently, I am both a scientist and I focus on on behavioral economics. So the field has fascinated me, and I'm very much immersed right now in behavioral economics. But I also, despite the fact that I work at the university, I teach the students, I do research. Um, I also work here at ConnectPay as a principal economist, and I also help them answer the important questions: how people behave, why they behave in a certain way, what are the greatest challenges that we're facing as a business, and what are the best ways to respond to them. So this is a very broad answer about myself,
That's
but yeah.
great. That's super interesting. And especially today when we have so many changes and the environment seems to be so unstable, what changes do you see in the behavior of people like employees and employers?
Oh, this is a very broad question. There are quite a few developments. Some of them come from this macro perspective. So we're seeing very rapid changes in the structure of the society. So very
Mhm.
rapid population aging that is also and will be increasingly more reflected in these changes in the labor market will be more and more reflected in how we do the business and how we operate because the society is aging so rapidly. We're seeing these technological changes, the emergence of AI, generative AI, just in general use of technology. And probably the third trend, this mega trend that we're seeing, is this changing relationship between employers and employees.
Mhm.
So this is completely a new thing that has emerged, maybe with the emergence of COVID, and it
Mhm.
has not gone away. So it is
Mhm.
here to stay. So this change in relationship in what employees expect from their employers. So I think this is one of the three mega trends that we
Mhm.
as a company and both as a society, and I think most companies will be observing more and more in the future.
So
So like, I could
starting
elaborate, of course,
uh
on each of them.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Let's dig deeper into all of those three pillars, and starting from the aging society. So the estimate is by 2050, around 40% of a global population will be aged 40 or older. So it's a pretty significant thing. How do you think it will affect, or maybe it's already affecting, the work environment?
Mhm. So, when we talk about the global scale, The developments are also happening. So we're seeing rapid aging, and it's probably observed almost in every country of the world. And now that we are in Europe, this is even more pronounced. So in
Mm-hmm.
Europe, by 2050, the average age will increase by more than 4 years. So,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that the working age population will continue to shrink, and will have elderly population um, taking over the place, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
elderly population will become higher, so will be larger, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does this mean for companies? So finding employees in general will become increasingly difficult. Um, but it's not just finding the employees, right? So of course, the migration could alleviate the problem somewhat. We could, well, open the doors to more migrants. They could come in, but given the fact that the societies in the developed world are kind of resistant to increased migration, I do not have much hope. It could, of course, alleviate the problem somewhat in the short term, but over the long term, the competition for talent globally is likely to increase. So I do
Mm-hmm.
not see this as a solution. So like this is as this is not a sustainable solution. Um, we will of course see more and more migration, but given the fact that there are cultural differences, there are differences in education, integrating the people will be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So how does
So it's
this?
pretty great news for employees, but not employers, right? Because if
Uh,
you see nowadays, there is this stigma that if you're like, especially it's because talent sourcers or like recruiters, they're pretty young people. And if they receive a CV of someone who's in their 40s, they think that they're most probably not very suitable for the role and they should look for younger people. So it seems like now there are more chances for older people to change their career and to find like a new job.
hmm? Uh, in fact, what you're noticing right now, recently, my friend, I never felt myself that I could be like not demanded in the labor market.
Hmm.
But well, my friend was recently looking for a job, and she said, "Well, the 20-year-old recruiters, they're shredding the CVs of the 40-year-olds."
Hmm.
So I don't think that this will happen for a very long time, because the recruiters probably will have very limited resources or very limited options. So one of the options is, of course, to make sure that the elderly, so not 40-year-olds, so they are not elderly, but even the 65 plus stay longer
Hmm.
in the job market. So what does that mean? So we have to adapt the workplace. We have to offer flexible work arrangements. So the elderly, and so they will stay in the job market for longer. But what impact does this have on innovations in a company? So we tend to think about aging, so that this will reduce the pool of potential employees. But we do not think about the structure of these employees, of the workforce. So because
Hmm.
companies, they require both young and somewhat older employees to work there, because they're very different in terms
Hmm.
of the human capital that they provide, in terms of the intellect that they provide.
Yeah,
So
actually, when we reach the age of 25, our brains stop being developed, right? So all the innovations and creativity starts dropping. So there is quite a risk here.
mhm. What the researchers have found is that younger people, they have this sort of so-called fluid intelligence.
Hmm.
So this fluid intelligence is the capacity to innovate, to create new things, to develop new things, new products, new ideas. So this is like this creative destruction. So these people are responsibly, most of the time they're responsible for this creative destruction that happens in science, in companies, everywhere. Uh, while and this type of intelligence, it tends to decline with age. So even it starts to decline in people's in a person's 30s. So people in their 30s, they start losing this fluid intelligence. So,
Mm-hmm.
but they develop crystallized intelligence. So, crystallized intelligence is a sort of intelligence that people accumulate over time. So they collect these experience that they have, and they put them in action. So imagine having a society, having a company where people with only crystallized intelligence dominates. What
Mm-hmm.
does this mean for innovation? What does this mean for creative destruction? What does it mean for developing new products, new ideas? So
Mm-hmm.
this is a very important concern, and I don't think we're talking about that a lot. That we really need to think: how can we make sure that societies that are aging rapidly, that they remain innovative, that they remain creative? Because when we look at these societies that are aging very rapidly, like Italy, Japan, South Korea. So they're stuck in low growth environments. They are
Mm-hmm.
not part of these transformations, these most of these novel technologies, they are not emerging there. So
Mm-hmm.
what does this mean? So it means that companies will have to think of ways how to remain innovative. And as I said, well, immigration could alleviate this problem somewhat, but it will not solve it completely. And I have a strong belief that technology will probably have to be used more actively, and especially when it comes to artificial intelligence. Now we have generative AI, and so all these new forms of AI that will emerge in the future. I think this provides us hope that
Mm-hmm.
the economists can continue to grow, that companies can continue to innovate, develop new products and new ideas. In fact, it has been shown that young researchers who patent their ideas. So the ideas that they patent, or the products that they patent, they are a lot more transformative. When it comes
Mm-hmm.
to somewhat older researchers, they tend to patent ideas or these incremental improvements that are based on something that they developed long time ago. So
Mm-hmm.
we are most productive in our 20s, 30s, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of innovation and our capacity to create new things. And this is a
Okay.
reality. So, and we have to live with it, and think how we can um, encourage people to behave more creatively. So I think AI, now that we have these new tools, especially like ChatGPT, it's developing very rapidly. So what it took for mobile phones, it took 16 years to reach 100 million of users. For ChatGPT, it took 2 months to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
we're having these huge investments in infrastructure, data centers. So I think we'll see this breakthrough. And once companies see the need, or value how AI can help them become more innovative, I think they will start using it more. Right now, of course, this is not yet very popular. At least companies are still looking for ways how they can help their companies. But it's still not very common for companies to use AI. But now with this ChatGPT o1, that can it is actually more suitable for brainstorming ideas, providing solutions, even solving these hard science problems. It has been
Mm-hmm.
shown that it does better than PhD scholars at solving hard science problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of this belief that it could be really transformational.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting because many people are afraid of technology, especially AI. because they are afraid to be replaced. And now you're saying that we need it because there won't be not enough people to be replaced. Actually, I mean, there will be a lack of young people there. Um, when do you think, how do you see this evolvement, that we could relax more and maybe, to focus on more like human tasks, let's say, and give all the tedious tasks to the AI without being afraid that we will lose our job?
I don't think we can be relaxed.
Mhm.
All of the technology, it has the potential to eliminate certain tasks and certain jobs. And I think this is up to the government to ensure that people continue to learn, to develop new skills, as well as the companies. Because not doing that can
Mhm.
result in really negative consequences. So in the US, there is this term, deaths of despair.
Mhm.
So there's this observation by two very famous economists, Akerlof and Case, who found that this deaths from suicide, deaths from drug overdose, liver disease. So these are basically deaths of despair that
Mhm.
people develop sort of when they do not see economic and social prospects in their life anymore. And this happens mostly in these areas that were most affected by globalization and technological advancements. So these Rust Belt states that used to be this manufacturing centers in the US. So I think this is a concern because people do not view their jobs as only something that provides wages or ensures that they have bread on the table. They view a job as a way of making new social connections, of interacting with people. And once they lose this possibility, that can really hurt them. Right
Mhm.
now, we're thinking that maybe AI and all these new technologies will allow us to engage more with our families, spend more time with our families. We can maybe travel more and see the world. We see only the positive side, but
Mhm.
people actually um, jobs are important for people to make their life meaningful. So finding this meaning in life, once you don't have a job or you spend very little time on the job, can be very difficult for some people. So like Keynes said, so another great economist from 1930, I think. Yeah. So he said his forecast was that soon these great technological advancements and very rapid economic growth, it will allow the humanity to work as little as 15 hours a week.
Nice.
And and they can spend the rest of their time as they want. Maybe they can go fishing, they can go on vacation. But he said, well, this will be a great challenge for people to find ways how to spend this time meaningfully. Maybe
Mhm.
create art and all these things. But I think it's still a challenge. So how I see the technology affecting people and the labor market. So I think it is crucial. So it will allow us to become more productive. Uh, and most of the people will probably reap some benefits. But
Mhm.
like with every technology, there's usually winners and losers. And how do we deal with the losers? How do we ensure that that we share the gains with the people who are not winners from
Mhm.
this situation. So I think this is a very important question that we should start talking about already now.
Jobrely now offers full cycle recruitment services, from creating a job ad to presenting shortlisted candidates after initial interviews. Fill out the project brief, and candidate profiles will be sourced for you. Connect your LinkedIn account, and a personalized messaging sequence will be sent from your LinkedIn account to all of the potential candidates. And after initial interviews, a comprehensive scorecard of shortlisted candidates will be presented. Visit jobrely.com and start a free trial. How developed is this topic, and especially at the governmental level, right? Because in the very beginning, answering to this question, you mentioned that companies and government should invest in people's development and like learning new technologies. And I believe that we in technology industry, we live in a bubble. Of course, like we're curious and we face technology every day, but people in other industries, I doubt. So, are there enough and well developed programs for that, or uh, we're still lacking?
Hard to tell. I think what we first of all need is to ensure that people engage in this lifelong learning. It's not just something that we do for a couple of years when we are in our 20s, 30s,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, that we ensure that we continue to develop these necessary skills and to remain competitive
Mm-hmm.
in the labor market. So when it comes to Lithuania, where I'm right now, I think it's ranks somewhere towards the end of how many people engage in lifelong learning
Mm-hmm.
among the OECD countries. So I think we still don't see this as a great threat and concern. People people started talking about this economic aspect of automation, for example, ensuring universal basic income for
Mm-hmm.
all all people in the society, that they could live on these income once some of the jobs are automated. But still, it does not address the social aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, having a job is not just um, it's not just an economic concern or economic problem. I think this is also a social
Mm-hmm.
problem, and we still don't know how to solve this
Mm-hmm.
problem, because this is a concern, because these people, you know, they may start voting for some radical parties, electing officials that promise all kinds of transformations and so on. So this could, in the end, be a threat to a democracy um,
Mm-hmm.
that that we may be observing in the world
Mm-hmm.
in recent years.
So thinking about the social aspect, like in technology industry, what I noticed that people are really focusing more on personal development, right? Like starting from meditations and breath work to like creating, painting something, like really becoming busier with other hobbies and activities than just work. And it's a very difficult thing because in this capitalist environment, all we know and all we want to do is just to work, right? Because this is the only one meaning, this and how we see the meaning of our life. But like on macro level, how do you see are people like tending to find like more time for other things, or it's still the focus and the priority is work and survival? Um,
Um, I think you touch on a very interesting topic. So this is what you're talking about, that people are finding ways how to identify with
mhm,
other groups outside of their work. This can also be a solution when it comes to this rapid automation that we're going to see. So when you only identify with a group of people at your work, or you identify with work, of course you
mhm,
will be affected a lot, because you have nothing to fall back to if it's
mhm.
gone. So I
Mhm.
think having other social identities is very important. So because we are very social creatures, so I wanted to touch a little bit upon that as well, on our social identities. So the psychologists have been exploring this, that we really want to belong to groups, right?
Mhm.
So and We want to belong to a company. This is one social group. Maybe I'm a parent. There's another social group. Maybe I participate in a jogging club. So there's another social group. So finding these other types of activities where I can belong to a certain group, this could actually alleviate this problem of not having work, because I
Mm-hmm.
can find meaning in other groups and I can identify with these groups a lot. There was this interesting experiment conducted on social identity. This was conducted by one psychologist in the UK, I think, um, where they matched. They collected these teenage boys. Uh, they collected these teenage boys, and then they were given. They were shown two pictures. One was by Klee, and another one was by Kandinsky. So
Mm-hmm.
these modern art paintings, and they selected which one they liked better. Then they were split in groups based on this selection of their paintings, and then they were asked to distribute tokens or money to in-group boys, those who liked Kandinsky or, for example, Klee, and those who liked the other painting better, not the in-groups, but the out-groups. So people tended to give a lot more money to their in-groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to really like our groups, and we
Yeah.
do not like very much the other groups. So
Mm-hmm.
this emphasizes this need for people to belong to certain groups, and we like these people who are in our group, so these in groups, and we do not like that much the out groups. So I think this is very relevant, especially when it comes to building culture in companies,
Mm-hmm.
right? So right now, what we have been seeing also is this emergence of remote work.
Yeah.
Right? People work from home. There is hybrid work. They can spend a couple of days in the office, but then it's very difficult to build group identity
Yeah. So that
within the
people would
company.
identify with the company.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
that people would identify with the company, and I think then it becomes really a concern for these flexible work arrangements. Although people really require them, and employee satisfaction is a lot higher when we have hybrid work, but at the same time, it becomes a challenge of creating this group dynamism, or creating this culture, company culture. So I think this is also something that we could talk about.
Is it good or is it bad? Because I think just before COVID, it was like, companies saying that we're like your family. And it's so not true because, like, if you stop performing, you will just get fired. So, family would not fire you, right?
Mhm.
So, there was like a little bit uh like misconception about, and
Mhm.
I think it was like a little bit too much of all these like identification and trying to keep the employees loyal at any cost. And especially if now we see that people should explore other activities and hobbies to prepare when they lose the job and it won't be dominating their life. So maybe the remote work and the hybrid work is good for the society, but not for the employers now to keep the employees.
It's probably a double-edged sword, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is
Yeah.
valued by the employees, definitely. People do like having the flexibility, having companies trust them that they will do their job. So, and this is very much also related to this identity leadership. To
Mm-hmm.
what extent leaders are able to trust that their employees, that they will do the job despite being at the office. And although it may be difficult to create this group identity, I think it's still possible even with having people outside. Maybe it will be more difficult to collaborate if the work is completely remote. because again, what research shows is that people, when they see each other, they cooperate more. I had this
Mm-hmm.
also one experiment run with my colleagues. Yeah, people do cooperate more when they see each other,
Mm-hmm.
and it has been shown in research. But what employers usually are worried about is the effect on productivity. So, what
Mm-hmm.
is the effect of having remote work on productivity? And there has been also research, quite a lot of research since the COVID pandemic has
It's
been
already
conducted.
5 years, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
and it's
we
not
have
going back,
some.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going back. People still want to have this
Yeah.
option of at least a hybrid work. Um, so um, and it actually depends. And it depends. The effect on productivity, what the research has shown, it depends. It depends on the type of workers that
Mm-hmm.
work in the company. It depends on their education. So this one research, there was again an experiment conducted, and they found they were researching call center employees. So they do
Mm-hmm.
not usually have higher education. They usually do not work in teams. So once they are allowed to work remotely, their productivity actually suffers. It's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult for them to motivate, probably, and having all these distractions. It has a negative effect on these type of workers. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to more educated people, another experiment was conducted. I think it was in Singapore, in a technology company, where a part of the employees were given this opportunity to work in this hybrid mode, and the other ones stayed in the office, and they observed productivity as well as employer like manager evaluations, and this was conducted for 2 years. So, and actually they did not find a negative effect on
Mm-hmm.
employee productivity. And in fact, what they did find is that this had a positive effect on the satisfaction, and it reduced the turnover of employees. So the
Mm-hmm.
company adopted this work model. So I think there's no one answer. Right now, we're seeing this again, this a little bit of a shift towards companies moving back, like bringing the employees back to the office. And I can understand the reasoning, especially if there are different types of employees in the company. For example, some are producing cars, and then so they have to be in the factory,
Yeah.
and then there is the management who is not in the factory or not in the workplace. So this can send a really bad signal to those employees and reduce their motivation for those who are at
Mm-hmm.
the factory. So I can understand other companies also wanting to bring employees back. They argue that, well, it's very difficult to create this group identity or collaboration in teams. Some actually even started installing spyware where they can track how much people actually spend time. But I think this even more counterproductive strategy, because this
Mm-hmm.
this creates the circle of mistrust. So because once and employees do learn and find out about this type of spyware, and they find ways of how to overcome all of this technology. But this starts this cycle of mistrust. You kind of signaling that you're not trusting your employees, so they will
Mm-hmm.
not trust you, and then everything will just start go down.
Mm-hmm.
Starts this downward spiral. So I think that this leaders they should take into account the importance of trust and yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it's a pretty interesting moment, right? Because everyone was let to work remotely from home, from warm countries and etc. Now they're being asked to come back, and most of the people decide not to come back to office. They'll better find a new job, another company offering that. So I see it like a little bit as a chaos, and it could be the same size, the same industry, the same size company in the same industry, and one is promoting a remote job, another is inviting everyone to come back to office. It seems like we're a little bit lost.
I think
What
so.
do you think, and how long and what it will take, to make our mind and to find out what's the best way?
I'm not sure. I think it will take some time. I see some benefits, as I said, of working in the office when it comes to cooperation, collaboration. But I also see the benefits of working remotely. I'm a big fan of working remotely, and the fact that the company gives me this opportunity, it signals trust. So
Mm-hmm.
trust, and then I want to reciprocate that
Mm-hmm.
trust. So I
Yeah.
think we'll have this moment where we're lost and looking for this new model for quite some time. And I see this as a natural experiment, as some companies will see how it goes. Maybe they will be more productive, like Amazon, bringing back their employees back to work 5 days a week. So I think all the other companies are kind of observing it and seeing how it goes. So if this is successful, they will probably go towards that direction. While others, I saw this quote by Spotify who said, where they said, our employees are not kids, so we do not have to monitor them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this opposite side where they think
Yeah.
we trust our employees. But I think once it starts, once the companies start facing some problems, is this is the time when they start to exploring maybe some other options, like bringing the employees maybe back. Maybe this is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I said, this is a natural experiment that they're implementing. I'm very curious and excited, and I really want to see. And we at our company are doing the same thing. I think we're experimenting to see which model works best for us.
Yeah.
Some days are in the office, then now we have some people working again remotely, and they can pick any days that they want to spend in the office. So I think every company is experimenting and looking for this right way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's also interesting because it's already 5 years as this is happening, right? And we still don't have an answer. Yeah, it could be tricky because, like, if you're an employee and you made a plan to spend winter time in Thailand, for example, and the company creates a new policy to come back to office, like your plans are ruined, right? So it's
Mm.
there's quite a lot of complications. And what I noticed from my personal network is that people tend to leave their job as an employee. I mean, they decide not to be employed anymore and to work as a contractor, so
Mm.
freelance. Did you notice a trend? Like, is it increasing or it did not get affected?
Well, not having people committed entirely to the company, I think this is also a bit of a concern, because it's very difficult again to build this culture or build this identity that we're all, that you feel identified with the group, that you want to be a part of it. Maybe you're working, a little bit in that company, a bit in the other one. You feel no commitment to come to the Christmas party or to some team building activities where you could actually feel as a part of the team. So I see some downsides to it. I see some upsides for a person,
Mhm.
that is willing to pursue this track. But I don't think that all jobs can be conducted in this way, right?
Yeah,
So
makes
we will
sense.
still probably need some employees who are fully committed to the
Mhm.
company.
Makes sense. And it also can be tricky for a person themselves, right? Because then you have so many opportunities and could you might take too much on your plate, and then there is a burnout, and then there is like a different thing. Because like one thing is that a company, someone is responsible for you, and you're like stably getting a certain amount every month. Another one is hustling, and then
Mhm.
having more stress and everything else. So again, advantages and disadvantages like everywhere.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's pretty interesting, I guess, to observe how people choose to live. They sometimes change careers, they change countries, and they become happier because finally they, like, I don't know, just because it's very difficult to make up your mind who you want to be when you're 18 or 19 years old, and then
Mm.
you become 35 and you decide that you don't want to be accountant anymore or a lawyer
Exactly.
anymore, right? So then what to do then? So it could be a really promising moment, but it's also a very scary one. And well, talking about future of work in general, um, maybe you have any ideas like how it will be, because we see that it's changing, right? But no one knows yet like how it will be. So what options are we having here?
Well, I there is research on this topic. Trying to put a number how many jobs will not be there anymore in a couple of decades, but I'm a bit skeptical of that. I
Hmm.
really do not think that we know exactly where this technological advancement is heading. We can have an indication, right? That certain jobs like this manual, simple tasks, like even myself, when I write a paper or write even an email, I got so used towards, just ensuring that it's written in a nicely structured way, and I use AI every day. So I just became accustomed to it. So it just naturally certain jobs will become extinct.
Hmm.
Probably like translators, interpreters. This could be something that has been
Yeah.
going towards there for quite some time. But what this people have been saying, the scientists have been saying, so this first wave of technological advancements, it affected more of these blue collar jobs. So with the automation in these workplaces, factories. It reduced the number of employees that are needed there. And even those that are needed there, they're usually quite high skilled and highly educated to be able to operate some of the machines. And what has been expected with this new wave of technology is that these white collar jobs will be affected next. Um, but like, I'm not sure if people will not come up with new jobs. So I
Hmm.
think that new jobs will be created. So it will not be like this dead end, that there's only a certain amount or certain number of jobs that is available there. So we as human beings have been very creative in finding new ways to remain to keep our lives meaningful, to have these meaningful careers. So certain jobs that uh, were not available before. I don't know, certain jobs related to social media, and especially in marketing. Some of these jobs were not there. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even. So we've been
Hmm.
quite creative in adding these new jobs. So, but they're mostly, at least my impression is that we'll need creativity and ability to think out of the box, adapt, because this will be very rapid times. So we'll need this lifelong learning ability to create new things and remain useful in the job markets. And I'm
Hmm.
very hopeful that we will not have to work 40 hours a week. And I don't think that we are working 40 hours a week. So try calling
That's a good
someone on
question.
Friday. Yeah,
Yeah.
try to get something done on Friday. So I'm here on Friday, right? So this is a nice signal to my employer.
Mhm.
But most people, they're probably somewhere outside of the city now, especially if it's summer. So I think we're still pretending, that we're working 40 hours. Maybe we are, because people tend to look at it more flexibly. Maybe I can work, I don't know, Tuesday night to get this done and then have the Friday off. And I think this provides this flexibility is especially nice for families, because juggling everything at once, and for example, for female careers, right? I
Mhm.
think this could be a really big breakthrough, when women can, get things done during the day and at the same time spend some time with their kids, having these flexible work arrangements. So, from the study that I mentioned, actually, those people who were most happy about this hybrid work in the Singapore company. These were the females. These were people who live far away from the office. So meaning that they don't have to commute every day and spend an hour or two just driving to work and back. So yeah, I think we have a very exciting future ahead of us,
Mhm.
but we really have to um, ensure that we do not stop. So we
Mhm.
have to continue growing. And
Mhm.
yeah, so because we will stay in the job market for longer, we'll
Mhm.
have better health than anyone before us. The predictions are we could live, so at least like with how we're doing right now, well, we could live to 120 years, like with this biohacking and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it means that we can stay in the labor market for longer if this is something that we want. So this is
Mhm.
a very exciting future for us. I'm very hopeful, but we really have to also keep in mind there are some other people who are less fortunate, and also put some pressure on policymakers on starting to think how will we address those who do not
Mhm.
share the gains from
Mhm.
this development.
Mhm. I totally agree with you. I honestly never believe that people are working 40 hours just because they're coming to office. Because office and colleagues and coffee and all the table football and other games are the biggest distractions. And it's so much better just, to close in your room and not to be in an open space and to do what you want. So I guess the purpose more is, to um, it then make employees identify themselves with a company and
Yeah.
to create the feeling and the like relations and get attached to their colleagues, to make friends, and etc., to be loyal to the company,
Hmm.
right? But then I guess it's so not fair. So you mentioned moms, but there is also like we're humans, we're not robots. We cannot work from 8 to 5 every day. We feel tired, maybe we feel sad, and we should work on another day when and we should cry out that day and next day to come work happier. I mean, there's so many things going on, and of course no one is like performing 100% just because they are in the office. So maybe companies should be more creative in that sense, that how to create this environment and not to make employees to waste their time for the like with the logistics, with the commuting, and with other things, right? So what could be the other options, to make them feel that they have friends among colleagues, but not to sacrifice their life so much.
I remember the COVID times, and this online parties that we had, and I thought this was absolutely crazy and waste of time. I really did not believe in having these meetings that the managers did their best, trying to bring people together, at least remotely, build this sense of identity, group identity. But I really don't think that this is a way forward. I think having regular meetings where people come and work together and spend time together, I think this is still very valuable, and it will not go away just having a day or two. I think this hybrid work environment, at least for me, it works perfect. Having just knowing who your colleagues are. During the COVID, there were so many hires, that really did not meet their colleagues in person, and for they met for the first time after 2 or 3 years, and this is crazy. I don't think it's possible to build this social identity by not seeing people in person. At least, I have
Actually,
this.
it is.
It
And
is.
there is like even one Lithuanian company, MailerLite, and Ilma Tiki even wrote a book about it,
Okay.
because they were remote first company even before COVID. And there are more cases like that. And of course, it requires a lot of creativity and a lot of additional budget, um, to buy tickets to everyone to go to certain place, so to meet. And like, especially if we're talking about web free companies, they're
Hmm.
all remote because they're looking at very specific talents, and it's very difficult to find all of them in one city. So in some cases it's even inevitable. I mean, there is
Hmm.
not possible to have one office. So I guess it's a matter more about the creativity and how to do it. And of course, maybe it won't be at the same level as if people are meeting in person daily, but then maybe we don't need it, right? So it's also a good question.
Hmm. So what you're mentioning, they were still meeting. They were going for dinners or like parties and so on. I don't mean exactly, that they have to meet in the office, and
Hmm.
but they still need this human interaction. And I think this leadership is really important here. It has been shown that leaders, their language actually is very powerful tool in how these social identities are created in a company. So leaders who use in their letters to employees words like we, our, us, presenting this as a community,
Hmm.
they were more profitable than the ones
Hmm.
who use I, me, and so on. And the same applies also to political leaders. The same thing, those who use the words us, we, and people can identify with this political group, they were twice as likely to win elections than compared to
Hmm.
those who did not use. So I think having really smart leaders who can ensure that this communication is very inclusive, and people are rewarded for their efforts. They can make mistakes, and people then want to identify with these types of companies, so they can be more successful. And this remote work, maybe is not a big challenge than to them.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, I think leadership is extremely important here.
Great. And the last question I have. So, do you believe in universal based income? It's a nice theory, but will it work amongst humans?
Hmm. So, universal basic income. There was this experiment conducted in Finland, and well, there's this nice idea that people, once they have this guaranteed basic income, they can release their potential. And they can work more, they can become more creative, maybe they can start businesses. And if I remember it correctly, this was not the case, at least in Finland. Well, the experiment, where maybe it wasn't implemented correctly there, but it did not lead to these consequences that were
Hmm.
expected. So I was
Why not?
not sure. So people maybe money, is an important driver as well. Just
Mm-hmm.
having to work for it,
Mm-hmm.
and people actually dropped out of jobs a lot more. They did not stay in their jobs, and they did not become more creative. Um, uh, so I was a big advocate, maybe I don't know, 8 years ago, even more, of universal basic income. But I still think, once I tried to divide all the budget, all the money that's there in the state budget, and how much people would get, and this was very little. This was very little. Even if we include spending on defense and all other types of causes, it's still, when you divide it by 2.8 million of people, it becomes very little. So
Mm-hmm.
some people who need it most will not be able to live on it, and
Mm-hmm.
those who do not need it, they will still receive it. So I see the logic, not having a means testing, but we would have to have very high taxes to be able to afford it, to be able to pay everyone 2,000 euros. Maybe in the future, once we become extremely rich, but we all are rich. Like, the world has not been richer ever
Yeah.
before, but it's still, the distribution is very unequal. So some
Mm-hmm.
are struggling, some are not, but still, paying a lot of this would require paying a lot of taxes and distributing it to everyone in the society. It just leads to very small universal basic income. And then I had another question, what is basic?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know, having a plastics, or some people may think that having like the gene editing of your future baby is a basic, but some should it be included in that? So there are
Mm-hmm.
some of these philosophical questions,
Yeah.
that we would have to answer. So what is
Yeah.
really basic? How much is basic? Maybe something that is basic for me is not something that is basic for you. So currently, I don't think this is feasible. Maybe in the future it will be. I
Mm-hmm.
understand the logic. I understand the good intentions of this tool, um, but understanding the human nature, understanding how people actually behave, I do not think that would work.
Yeah, that's very tricky. I mean, it's a nice promise and a nice solution could be, but again, when it comes to humans, I think it should be it will be really challenging. So thank you so much, Laura. It was like really interesting and so
Thank
many
you.
provoking thoughts. And yeah, and I guess the biggest insight is despite the fact how everything will turn out, we personally need to work for ourselves, for our personal development, and to learn as much as we can in order to adapt to the new changes.
For sure, for sure. And I'll finish with one story. So this spring, I was finishing up my PhD. So I went to San Diego, Rady School of Business. Yeah, and there was this big seminar with all these best professors in behavioral economics, and there was this one famous professor. I think he was 70 something at that time, and so we started talking with him. He had some Lithuanian heritage, and I said, well, I'm 39 now, so I'm turning 39. It's a bit late to do PhD. So I said, all these people here, they're 25-year-olds, so I kind of feel a bit out of place here. And he said, well, I did not have a published paper until I was 45 years old.
Mhm.
And now he's one of the greatest professors, Well, it's sad that he passed away, but he managed to achieve a lot. So really, age, despite the fact that we do not have that much of this fluid intelligence, there are still some exceptions. So, and we have to try. And if there is this drive for you to go and explore something new, I think people should just go for it. This costs money, because starting new career in your 30s, 40s, you're used to a different kind of lifestyle already. So it means you have to go back in lifestyle, because you're starting again from scratch. So, and this is very difficult to do. But we do need to work on this. We have to engage in this lifelong learning, because this is not only necessary, I think this is very exciting. You realize how many things you didn't know, and when you're 40, you think you already seen everything, and then you find this new field that is so exciting, and you can have maybe another career in it. I think life is just too short for one career.
Great. Thank you for sharing. That's very
Thank you.
inspiring. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe on the media of your choice. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And if you need help with your recruitment, please visit jobrely.com.